Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. Join us as we delve into the dynamic world of pharmacy, exploring the latest trends, innovations, and insights that shape the industry. Our podcast is proudly brought to you by Independent Pharmacies Australia (IPA), dedicated to supporting independent and bannered pharmacies nationwide. We're committed to connecting all member pharmacies under the IPA national brand, recognized by Australians for elevating community healthcare to meet local needs. Our vision drives our mission to empower pharmacists and pharmacy professionals. From discussions on healthcare advancements and regulatory updates to interviews with industry experts and success stories from pharmacy professionals, we cover it all. Our goal is to inspire and equip pharmacists to thrive in today's ever-evolving landscape while championing the values of independence, community, and excellence. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking to Sally Panton, the General Manager of Precision Health at DBG Health. DBG Health is a leading health, wellness, and beauty group and is known for delivering millions of affordable products globally while continuously developing innovative solutions to meet patient and consumer needs. DBG Health's diverse portfolio focuses on a wide range of health solutions, from consumer products to cutting-edge healthcare technologies, with a clear commitment to improve health outcomes globally. IPA, Independent Pharmacies Australia, and Precision Health are integral divisions of DBG Health, and members of IPA are able to access various services and products offered under DBG Health. In this podcast, you will hear how Sally is a serial entrepreneur and a pioneer in preventative health solutions here in Australia. With over a decade of experience at Seek, one of Australia's top technology companies, she brings a strategic, data-driven approach to healthcare innovation. Passionate about making a meaningful impact, Sally serves on the boards of Murdoch Children's Research Institute, Young Presidents Organization, and Igniting Change. In this episode, we'll dive into Sally's instrumental role in bringing rapid antigen tests into Australia and New Zealand and explore the exciting developments happening in point-of-care testing. This interview is for the innovators, the entrepreneurs alike, so sit back and listen to how Sally's passion, drive, and tenacity are transforming the health industry. We'll also discuss the incredible work that has gone into advancing the point-of-care program to where it is today. Sally, before I even get into everything about you and just start talking to you, I've got a question. If you were to introduce yourself to someone today, What would you tell them you do? What would you tell them? Who are you, Sally?
Who am I today? At the moment, I absolutely love what I'm doing. I'm the General Manager of Precision Health at DBG, and we work really in the preventative side of healthcare, and have a whole range of partners from functional pathology to wearable technology like Aura Ring, to point of care testing in pharmacies for diabetes and high cholesterol, DNA testing. It's all around prevention and longevity. So I'm very fortunate to have that position and meet incredible partners all the time. And I guess when we go through the background, you'll understand why I'm so passionate about preventative health.
So just to sum it up, because we met about a year ago, and it was around DNA testing that we met. And were you just brand new to DBG then when we met about a year ago?
Yes. So I worked with DBG in a joint venture, but that was officially when I came across as an employee about a year and a half ago.
The story you told me then, I was like, surely not. Surely not. Do you mind diving into that story? Because it's absolutely astounding. It's amazing.
It was a wild ride. I think we were reflecting on it as well when we spoke about the journey that in the early days I was from a pharmacy background. So grew up in health, and Dad had pharmacies and the medical clinic next door, which we still have today on the Mornington Peninsula. So I was always around medicine, patients, and the business side of healthcare from a very young age, was working for him. And then I went through this what do I want to do phase. So I went to Melbourne Uni, did an arts degree, random mix of languages and like art history and a bit of business. And like most 20-year-olds, I had no clue where I was headed aside from wanting to travel and party. But of course, need to pay bills. So I actually was fortunate enough to get a really amazing job at Seek, which is where so much innovation was happening. So I was working for Paul and Andrew Bassett, the founders, and that really gave me this deep love for innovation, seeing how new ideas could truly change industries. So that was incredible. But then got back into health, which was in my blood. So it felt natural then when I had babies to step away from my corporate job and take over the medical clinic. And that's when the entrepreneurial fire, I guess, really sparked. And I learned a lot with that business, a lot about healthcare. And we have the building next door. So we recruited tenants to bolster the offerings, like we have a pathology on site and allied health professionals, etc. So that was such a rewarding couple of years to do that. And then we wanted more. I was doing this with my sister, and we thought, let's, the business going well, what should we do next? Let's go to the US and see what's happening over there. We could potentially bring some ideas back. So where did we want to go in the US? We thought, let's go to Harvard, because that sounds like, the best place to get ideas on healthcare innovation. And let's just apply. We didn't do a general management program. It was a 2-day course that you paid to go to. But we got accepted into it. And it's this value measurement healthcare course.
Yes.
It was really funny upon reflection. I think we hit the diversity quota being from Australia and female, because I was sitting next to this gentleman, Mark, who I still keep in touch with. And we were going around the room, introducing ourselves. And he said, "Hi, I'm Mark. I run neurosurgery at the Boston Children's Hospital, just around the corner." And then halfway through, I realized one of the case studies was about Mark, how he'd successfully separated conjoined twins at the brain.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm sitting there being like, "Hi, I'm Sally from Beach Medical Clinic." So we met some really, really amazing people there. And that was the catalyst for then being introduced to, I think, the life-changing partner, one of the life-changing partners, called Access Bio. So we, whilst we were in the States, we met all these people, all these interesting people, and there was an introduction to Access Bio, who are a US-based manufacturer of rapid diagnostics. And they're funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Global Health Investment Fund, worked a lot with the WHO. And they had a product line around malaria diagnostics.
Yes.
And so it wasn't really what we set out to do initially, but then we thought we have a bit of knowledge that, the Pacific countries around Australia do have high prevalence of malaria. And so we made a deal to become their exclusive distributor in Australia and the Pacific. And we did have a bit of oversight that, there's a lot of medical aid invested to our Pacific partners from Australia. So we knew that we had a chance of being able to find partners locally and distribute that tech, because they didn't have the traditional lab infrastructure. The point of care testing made sense.
Yeah.
So that was really the first part of the journey. And then everything changed overnight. Of course, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And I remember the Grand Prix. It's funny, the Grand Prix is on today. I can hear it from home. And I remember watching the whole thing being set up, and then the day before, we were supposed to be going the next day, and they just cancelled it. And then they closed borders, and it was all happening. And that's when there was just uncertainty everywhere. No one knew what on earth was going to be happening. And of course, even the medical clinic was in a panic because we couldn't see anyone with a sniffle, and it
Yes.
threw everything into chaos. So that was really interesting, and the right place, right time, I must say,
Yeah.
one of those moments, because Access Bio pivoted really quickly, and their incredible scientists were able to develop one of the first COVID rapid antigen tests that had FDA approval. And Biden even ordered them to stop everything else, stop malaria production, just produce COVID tests. And so then we negotiated that exclusive distribution right for Australia really fast. We knew it could be massive, the opportunity, but it was just two of us, and we had to move fast, and we had to do a whole heap of work to make sure, the efficacy was there. We
Yes.
had
TGA
credibility.
regulations, all
Oh,
of it.
exactly. So that's I guess the next part of the journey. No one knew what a rapid antigen test was. Some people had heard of it, even doctors didn't know what they were.
Yeah, I
Some people
figured.
had heard of the antibody tests that show if you had a virus, but not these acute diagnostics. So that was frustrating because it made our journey really hard in the early days, because we just get dismissed by anyone. They didn't understand the value of the technology. So we worked pretty diligently to get validation from whoever we could get validation from. So the Doherty Institute validated our tech, and New South Wales pathology. Then they were first used by government in the Howard Springs Quarantine Centre. And we were very lucky to meet the most incredible doctor at this time, because again, we needed this credibility. We knew we had a great product, but I'm not a physician, an epidemiologist. They seem to be coming out of the woodworks from everywhere. But Ian was a global emergency response specialist for the WHO. And the only reason we had him in Australia was because he was stuck here. He couldn't go, and, he'd previously been over, helping fight Ebola and in natural disasters, etc. There's a whole documentary on him. But he made it his mission to help us get these much needed tools to people, to businesses, and then government. So he was incredible. And then in the early days, we really hit a wall with not TGA. We got them TGA approved, which in itself was another story, but we got that through. And then the state governments banned them because they said that they're not accurate enough. But the argument we always had was, which is common sense, everyone knows now, it's an adjunct. You get a PCR test when you need to diagnose something, but this is screening, and you can't screen whole populations with PCR tests. And there was just this ridiculous ongoing rant that we had to continue to convince people of. But then what was amazing, even though the government was lagging, and we hadn't quite realised why at that stage, we had so many great introductions to people, and I can't believe the people I had Zooms with, like their head of Qantas, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Ian Norton, Dr. Ian Hosegood, that is the other Ian, and then Rob Scott from Wesfarmers. Jenny Westacott had us present to Business Council of Australia. We were supplying AFL. Any business who saw the need for a screening tool that was really
Yes.
useful at keeping people safe and pretty good at detecting COVID, or very good at detecting COVID when you're in that infectious state. So then we realized why we weren't having traction. So the business was going well,
So quick questions,
Yeah.
if I may, because so when you say we,
Yes.
it's just you and your sister at this
That's my
point.
sister and I, yes, at this point. It really was.
And so when you come back to Australia, because it's really
Yes,
hard to believe, it's hard to
yes,
actually
yes,
believe this. So you come back to Australia, you start doing malaria screening tests to begin with,
yes.
and then the
Short lived.
company that you're working with is
Yes,
asked to pivot due to COVID.
yes,
And immediately they're saying to you, well, the only thing we've got to sell you are these rapid antigen tests.
yes, yes.
So now you go first up. What are those?
First up, we did a lot of what are those and due diligence on actually if it was a good idea. Yeah, that's right.
And then
But
from there, you
yeah,
also had to take that information that you now had gathered and also now educate others on what they were
yes,
before you could even bring them into the country.
yes. It was pretty wild time. We were even having to aggravate Border Force because they wouldn't even let them in. It
Wow.
was just everything during COVID was a shambles. So I think everyone who worked in the healthcare industry knows what it was like.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we were on the ground. We were the ones complaining, saying, "Where are the bloody rats?"
I know. Um, so we realized after we had really good engagement from corporates,
Yeah.
we realized because we were doing door-to-door shipping for them, we didn't have
So
warehousing
did
set
you
up for
door knock for that to get into
it.
the corporate doors? How did you?
Sometimes, sometimes if the orders were smaller, I would take put my mask on and go and deliver. Like the Victorian Institute of Sport, I'd go and deliver their rapid tests.
And
AFL.
so, how did you get that intro into corporate? Like, because
Um,
so it was more accepted by corporate, was it?
Corporates were so eager for a solution, and they weren't concerned about, um,
Too
I
much
think,
red tape.
the politics around.
Yeah.
Well, they just couldn't get pathology tests. Like people had to go and line up for hours to get a pathology test at this time. So they just knew this is the next best thing. And epidemiologists were speaking highly. And to be
Why
fair,
did it as
by this
well?
stage, everywhere around the world was using lateral flow tests, just not Australia, which again is like it was
Oh,
idiotic. But we hit a wall and realized that then this is where I've learned so much about the whole government structure and how all of the reimbursements work. But pathology companies had a huge vested interest in keeping their rebates for PCR tests. So that was really the blocker. And once we learnt all about that, we were able to successfully go and meet with people in Canberra, met with Greg Hunt and John Skerritt at TGA, and once they saw the big picture, then everything changed. Things moved really
mm,
quickly, and you probably remember then you couldn't even
yes.
get your hands on them.
Yeah.
Um, so suddenly an avalanche of demand occurred overnight.
Yeah.
So we were just thinking, shit, there's just two of us. What do we do? We need infrastructure. We need
Yeah.
capital. We need
Yeah.
people. Um,
Because this was a two-man show, right?
and show. And so then that was enter Dennis Bastis, who was introduced to us by our local MP, who we'd probably been annoying for months about Katie Allen. Um, so she said, you must meet Dennis and have a chat to him about this. So we met Dennis, and he was amazing. He's visionary and sees the big picture, understood the problem, saw the solution. So we were so fortunate to then be able to work with Dennis and his team at Arotex. Sue Morgan was a massive influential figure in that whole time. She was amazing. And then we got these ridiculously large orders from
Yes.
Australian government departments, but also the New Zealand Ministry of Health, which trumped every other order. They loved our tests because they were really fast, they were manufactured in the US, and they were really accurate. And so they ordered approximately, I think it was 50 million tests, and they needed them ASAP. So that was
So
the
just to put this in perspective, you've come from maybe 50 tests, which you're
oh,
delivering to the footy team,
yes, yeah.
to
So they
over.
were still relatively large orders. We thought for our biggest order was from Fortescue Metals Group, and that was 15,000 tests. And we were like, wow, we can like start taking a salary from this now. That's great. Buy medical clinic for a bit. So that
And then overnight, invoice
yes.
comes into the inbox, ting.
Oh, it wasn't quite like that, but yes, after a lot of conversations, a lot of lobbying, then it all just started to shift really quickly. Um, and that wasn't just us. There were amazing advocates for this kind of product being needed. And I really do think COVID and all of those people, the voices, even the Business Council of Australia got behind it, Jenny Westacott, and, epidemiologists, one lady in particular, who actually passed away last year, but she
Oh,
was incredible at pioneering for this much needed tech. And I think what they've done is paved the way for future health technology, like now at home testing, rapid testing, even, we're launching our own range of chemists' own rapid test in pharmacy, which is an incredible job by DBG team. That wouldn't have existed before COVID. So it
yeah,
has been
very
kind of
true.
revolutionary in terms of how people see point of care diagnostics.
Very
So during the crazy period, we had to charter massive, like Emirates, Boeing 777s, and became DHL's biggest customer that year because that enormity of like 50 million just sounds like a number, but to actually see it was wild. And then the warehouses of stock. So it was a journey. So that was the
gosh.
crazy journey that happened throughout those couple of years during the pandemic.
So just some time frames onto this.
Yes,
So at the beginning of COVID, that's when you started the conversations about the rat tests.
yes,
Because obviously the rat tests came a bit later on in the piece.
yes, yes, they
So
did.
yeah, so the conversations actually started pretty much when COVID happened.
That's right. So that a lot of people knew, a lot of, I guess, and this is, it helps having credible people behind you. So we really got a lot more cut through when we had Dr. Ian Norton helping us navigate conversations, because when it was us, it was like, okay, you've got a COVID test. That's nice. On you go. But we did a lot of work to make sure we had um, the local testing done, the Doherty Institute behind us, and Ian helping. And then, of course, it helped when international markets started using them.
Yeah.
Um, but no, at the start, it was like selling something that had gone
Snake
off.
oil.
And
Snake oil, I'm like, lady.
and then I remember one Christmas I had like 70 messages from different friends saying, can we have some rats? Because we also, Mary Louise McLaws, who's the epidemiologist I must mention, who passed away from a brain tumor last year, she's the one who coined the term rats. Because she said, we need to call them something, a rapid antigen test. No one knows what that is. She said, just call them rats, 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 rats. And then even it was funny when then the health
Everyone.
ministers were saying rats, and people know them as rats now. And I'm known as like the rat girl with colleagues.
Well, thank you for the rats. But so throughout this whole journey and all the hard slog, like literally, I think I've been trying to put it in perspective, even in my mind, as to how you would have come, like getting something that no one knew, then
Mhm.
trying to sell the dream, educating yourself, number one, then
Yes,
selling the dream, and then not making cutthroat as what you're expecting, and then trying
yes,
to educate government, and then trying to go over the red tape of it
yes.
all. I'm sure there were a lot more challenges, like because
So many,
chain, like
so many.
I'm pretty sure that like even just getting the rats, because you said they were manufactured in the States, so trying to
Yes,
get them halfway across the world to Australia would have
yes.
been a challenge in itself. Because
Oh,
I know we
that was
couldn't
the
even
hardest
get
part.
stock.
Yes, absolutely. The hardest part was the supply chain, keeping on top of what was where, um, because flights were getting cancelled, because pilots were getting COVID, and then we had to send someone sea freight, someone air freight, and had to bid for space on aircrafts, and some had to just go and pass empty passenger planes. It was wild. Because of course all of the borders were closed, so it meant that
Yes.
aircrafts weren't hardly um, available. So we worked crazy, crazy hours, and I feel, to this day, I don't know how we did it. With my daughter was only 3 months when this all
Oh
started,
my gosh.
and Jack was toddler. He wasn't even 2, I don't think. So it was a wild, chaotic time, and I remember lots of late night texting with Sue about dramas, glass of wine, feeling stressed. Um, but we were very, very thankful for DBG and that's what Dennis. And Dennis says to me all the time now, what he admired was that we just didn't take no for an answer ever. So I think that really helps. If you've got that mindset, just don't take no for an answer. If you believe something to be right, go for it. we were pretty aggressive. And he says that too, because I think I called or emailed him uh, 50 to 100 times to convince him to partner with us, that we needed him to partner with us,
Yes.
which, turned out to be really successful business wise for us both. Um, and so that's something that I'll have my whole life now, is understanding how you can influence policy, you can influence government stakeholders, you can influence people who will tell you no initially. You just have to find a way. It was an incredible learning experience, and a lot of it came down to the right time, right place. But then the other part was, I would say,
The grit.
for all of that, yeah,
Yeah, because
we kind of got in so deep, we didn't have an option.
how did you not just say stuff it? Like, seriously, I'm pretty sure once you finish one hurdle and then you come against another, how
Yeah,
did you just say, like, what was
that
the
was
driving force,
totally,
I think? What was the
yeah.
driving force that made you keep going and going?
I think the reward at the end, obviously, because it was a successful business outcome for us. Um, so that was one, but also my husband was amazing. He was just, I was downloading on him all day, every day, because we were working from home together. And he's extremely commercial and calm, and I'm the probably the more erratic one. So we balance each other really well. That and Dennis's trust in us and backing was incredibly powerful. So we're so grateful for that. But there were so many times, tears, not wanting to get out of bed. Because some of these orders as well were that significant that if we didn't deliver upon them, there's
Yes.
really huge legal ramifications around
Oh,
not delivering. So it was touch and go so many times, where it wasn't just like take the order and everyone's happy. It was like delivering all of the outcomes. That was huge undertaking for the entire team and the government as well. We ended up going to New Zealand to have a party with the Ministry of Health over there. At the end of it, we sang karaoke and went out for this fun night because we all were in it together, and
yeah.
we're just like, we've done it. We've closed out this program, which was an amazing memory
Amazing.
now that I think of it, because it's hard not to just put that whole period aside and think of it as stress and,
Yeah,
oh my gosh, all the things that happened. But to reflect on the positive parts is also really nice. So thank you
it
for letting
is.
me do that.
Because I think taking that is what has led you to what we're doing today.
Yes, yeah.
So all those learnings that you achieved during that time and the connections and the knowledge, you can now
Yes,
leverage it to whatever project or program you go on to develop in the diagnostic space. But I want
yes,
to take it back one step
yes,
because you mentioned your father and you talked about him being a pharmacist and that you and your sister actually worked at the pharmacy to
yes.
be
I
at
went to the pharmacy. Yeah.
pharmacy and then the medical center as well.
Then we took over the medical centre.
Yeah.
So that's still a business today down in Mornington. Yes.
So, with that experience that you saw or were exposed to in pharmacy, is that what's led you to actually start building and working in the pharmaceutical industry?
I
Is
think it
that
was by accident kind of, but also feels so right. Growing up with Sigma boxes all over our house and, working for dad and knowing the customer journey in pharmacy from 20 years ago, it's really helped, yeah, integrate well
yeah,
into what I'm doing now. I'm not so much on the pharmacy side. I am working with the technology and precision health technology, which obviously is going to make its way into pharmacy very soon and already
the
has in some
pharmacies?
instances.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of having an appreciation and understanding pharmaceuticals, it's been really, really good.
Seeing your dad actually work his pharmacy as well probably
Yes,
brought that element of how how a pharmacy business is run.
yes.
I think one time you shared a story with me about how loving your dad was, for lack of a
Oh,
better word. Like he
he
cared for his
oh, he
patients.
loved his customers. He's he's actually one of the most charismatic, people, and should have been in corporate sales somewhere, I think. But he was a pharmacist who had a few pharmacies, and worked really, really hard when he was quite young to set those up. We lived in a country town in Horsham, in the middle of nowhere in Victoria, because that's where my parents could afford to buy a pharmacy. And then he moved to Mornington eventually and built out businesses along the way. And I honestly think his success was due to his care for patients, for all the details, customer service, making sure we had the best services, the best stock. Everything he did was extraordinary. And this was pre-Chemist Warehouse days as well, when pharmacy was very much a service provider, and
Yes.
it wasn't just a retail environment,
Yeah.
like you see in some of the pharmacy networks today.
Yeah, and services are important. It's
Yes, yes,
actually
so
going to
important.
be, yeah, it's going to be that element that differentiates us in the market.
100%. And this is why I think with point of care testing coming into pharmacy,
Yeah.
it will expand so many opportunities for pharmacists to talk to their patients about other health conditions, expands the scope, and has, the ability to become something, not just with the initial tests like for diabetes, cholesterol screening, but for, when we get future innovation, we can bring it to pharmacy, and it's the perfect place. It's very accessible to go to a
Yes.
pharmacy. To get into a GP, you have to wait. And having young kids, when they get a virus or something, it's a disaster having to wait for days to get into a doctor, only to be told then you have to send off a pathology test and then wait days. It's just, the system doesn't work. You need both. You need both good pathology infrastructure for the more serious things, and then good point of care, reliable point of care pathology grade in pharmacy settings for those instances where you need a quick test.
For sure, for sure. And that's what the whole pilot program that you've developed and worked along with a number of teams within the DBG portfolio has come about. So it's
Yes, well,
delivering
you must
those
take credit for that, just because you've been incredible at being a
programs.
pharmacist.
I was trying to be shy.
I so admire that, all of the effort and passion that's gone into it from you, Melody, because it's a huge
It
thing
is.
to develop a new process and program, that's never been done before. So
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to say, that it's almost reminiscent of the journey of the rats because it's something that's never been done. You're
that's right.
having to educate, you're
Yes,
having to get the buy-ins. There's
yes,
also supply chain issues when it comes
yes,
to this as well.
yes.
So it's almost as
It
if
is.
you,
And now I'm rolling up my sleeves ready, because I
yeah,
know that we deserve, and pharmacists deserve, an equivalent rebate to what the pathologies get for the point of care testing that's about to roll out. So this is something I'm very passionate about, and we want to work with as many people who believe that this is the right thing, to work with the health minister and ensure that point of care testing can be widespread and accessible,
exactly.
especially for these conditions. Diabetes is just absolute, the numbers are
Yeah.
insanely
Big.
high. Um,
2.5 million Australians are diagnosed are have type 2 diabetes. Not
yes,
only that, and I think, and I'll be very honest, because we met when we were talking about DNA, and I was sold.
yes,
I was sold
yes,
on pharmacogenomics, and I'm a
yes.
big fan
It's
of it.
incredible. Yes.
Fan of it. So when you're ready for that project, my hand is up.
Yes, we have an incredible, hopefully it will be announced in the media soon. We've got a amazing pilot with My DNA, and all the work they do around pharmacogenomic testing, and a really amazing nursing home care home in New South Wales called Widden. And what they're doing, because a lot of elderly residents are on multiple medicines, and they're having falls. A lot of them are on mental health medications, etc. So we're doing this big study to show PGX testing, and then intervention with the right medications, and then monitoring a whole range of different benefits after that. And I think that will be really powerful to demonstrate the real local impacts that has,
Yes.
because going to a doctor and not knowing which antidepressant
Done.
medication to be on
Yeah.
and having to go through that trial and error is really stressful for people. So that's where, Lior, the CEO of MyDNA, and his team are doing incredible things there, but I hope that becomes mainstream soon,
Oh,
and part of every doctor's conversation
Yes, where we say,
whenever
let's
they're
do a quick
prescribing.
screen. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So 100%, I think that's the direction that we should be heading when it comes to even our health. In the
yes.
same way that AI is taking over, our bodies should become also that level of knowledge.
I agree. And it was interesting hearing people throughout the pandemic that knew what they were talking about. They always said testing is like your eyes on the virus. So your eyes on something. I think testing, whether it's for pharmacogenomics, whether it's for gut microbiome or vitamin and mineral deficiencies, which we have, um, it's all for health optimization and it's
Yeah.
all preventative. Testing is so important, but it's not mainstream yet. You go to get your labs, your standard labs from your GP, and they miss so much that they could be testing for. So that's where the future, I believe, in precision health will be DNA testing, because you can learn so much about your predispositions um, to medication and other things like food and fitness, but also um, bio biometric testing
Yeah.
for from blood to understand functional pathology outcomes. So that's going to be
And
something
that
that we're
will
looking forward to working on.
Yeah, and that will work all together with the point
Yeah.
of care testing as well. I've had the benefit with the point of care testing of working with the pharmacies that are actually taking part in the pilot. And
So
the
good.
numbers are there. They're there to
Yes.
say the community wants testing. We've
Yes.
got a number of pharmacies who are doing 10 tests a day just on patients and discovering and giving consults and being there to actually intervene on their health earlier in the piece rather than later.
It changes people's whole lives. You can catch
Yeah.
someone with pre-diabetes and alter their lifestyle or intervene with medication, and it changes the course of their life, their health trajectory. So we can't underestimate the importance of making this kind of mass screening available.
Um, Another thing I've also noticed is that even though it's there in the community, it's wanted by the community. There's also a level of we where we hit a ceiling.
Mm.
And I think that's where you're working and a team are working to see if you can break through that ceiling so it becomes affordable to everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you just have to look at the cost um, of sickness on the healthcare system. And if we're doing some testing to prevent that, it really should be covered from the
Yes.
federal health budget, or, a combination of federal and state budgets, so that people don't ever have a barrier to staying well. Um, that's my point of view. And, I think it's only fair the pathology labs do the same tests, they get rebates for them. Why not rebate
Pharmacists.
it in pharmacy so that we can we can allow for pharmacists to make it viable, and also patients to have access whenever they need it.
Very true. So in the same way, are you lobbying different bodies, different suppliers? Who are you
We
knocking? What doors are you knocking on?
knocking on them all. Oh, look, we've had some really amazing conversations. We've spoken with Senator Ann Ruston at a dinner the other evening. She's very open to preventative healthcare measures. And I know Mark Butler and his team are looking at this space. Dean Whiting, who is the CEO of Pathology Technology, is incredible. He's also a voice who is advocating for this to be, part of change that should be made affecting pharmacy. And there are some other really key leaders who are involved from different companies, global diagnostic companies, as well. So we've got the right team. It's just about how soon we can convince change to take effect. The
Yes.
sooner the better. The more patients that we can intervene and in a positive way with, the better, because it does, every screening could uncover something that could change someone's life.
Yes, very true. We've actually seen prescriptions come out of the screenings that we've done where pharmacists have referred a patient to a doctor.
Yes.
They have in turn come back with a prescription,
Yeah.
and that patient would never have gone and gotten that prescription if it hadn't been for that first point of contact with that
Absolutely.
screening occurring. So
Absolutely.
it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm sold on it. I actually think this is the way as a profession we should be going. And it also
Yeah.
ties in what pharmacists are doing with full scope.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully we get to a point where we can screen, and
Yeah.
not only that, but do what the other international global markets are doing, where they're testing to treat or
Yeah.
test and treat
Oh,
models.
yes, exactly. That makes so much sense, because then you've got the right answer there for the medication. And that's where, as technology just gets more affordable, testing technology gets more affordable, one day we'll get to a point where it will be feasible to do a PGX test very quickly and then get your medication
Yeah.
from your pharmacist.
Adjusted or,
And
yeah,
yeah, exactly. And for in diagnostics, you do your test and then you can treat with that relevant treatment.
information. Yeah.
Structured prescribing. So that's certainly the way that things should move. And then my vision, one day, hopefully, you would go into your pharmacy as a trusted service provider, and you'd go there for your all of your health markers. So you would
Yeah.
do your vitamin and mineral deficiency test, you would do your microbiome test, and you would do your, blood pressure, diabetes screening, all of the tests in one sitting. And then you have this ability to keep on top of your health more than ever before.
And it's actually quite crucial because I think also one thing that COVID highlighted, and we also see with the drugs that are currently on the market since COVID as well, that people are now on the pulse with their health.
Yes.
So
It's
they're
all
on the
the
pulse.
longevity craze. There's this
Yeah.
longevity movement happening. And you can actually, it's crazy the technology that's coming out these days, that you can even test for your biological age based on epigenetic markers. So it will give you an indication of, so I'm 35, but my biological age is 33. And then it gives you an indication of the pace at which your cells are aging at, so, or
Oh, wow.
organs. So of course, if you're aging really quickly, that's not good. You need to intervene, do
Yes.
something, change lifestyle. If you're aging slowly, it gives you the snapshot into health span as well as lifespan, which is
Oh,
really, really interesting.
that is really interesting. Send
Yeah.
me that test, please.
Yes, it's a DBG test. I'll send one to you. Actually,
Because
Adam Dubrick is the one to talk to about that. His biological age is about 10 years younger, and he called a town hall to tell everyone about it. He was so excited.
well, wow. It's so with the precision health diagnostic that you work in DBG, are you looking for new opportunities? You're out there looking around the world, looking around the
Yes.
globe to
Yeah.
sort of see what can you bring to Australia to get better health outcomes for the Australian community. But not only that, are you looking at other arms and branches
Yeah.
around the world as well?
We're always looking for amazing new tech. A lot's come out of universities, so we try and stay close to institutions because they don't traditionally commercialize things well, so they need commercialization partners after they invent or develop something. So the Imperial College of London is who we work closely with on some really interesting tech, which matches your personalizes your product recommendations like supplements and vitamins based on your either DNA or blood biomarkers, which is really, really good. So one day you'll be able to go into like a Priceline shop with your DNA and your health essentially. So nothing's a one size fits all. It's all personalized precision health, which is very cool because we've never had access to that level of technology before to be able to do that. But the time's now, and we're excited to be building out a global offering with all of these things. And there's some really exciting stuff happening in the background. with regards to AI behind precision health, which
That's
I
what I
can't
wanted
say too
to
much more
ask.
about, but
Yeah.
really this project at the moment, I think would be the first of its kind, certainly in Australia, if not the world. And it is so exciting. But we can't wait to talk about that perhaps on another episode with some other people involved in that, because that will give people the most comprehensive view of their health that you could possibly ever have by combining certain tests, and having personalized recommendations. So that is in the pipeline.
Pipelines. With all this data that you're collecting
Mm.
on people's health,
Yes.
how secure is our data platforms?
Yes. Yeah. Good question. Very secure. And this is fundamental to the responsibility of being a precision health provider, is data security. So we have a data security partner who works for the US Army, for example. That's how strict they are in terms of data sovereignty, because it's imperative that people can trust
Yes.
that their data is kept secure, and especially DNA data.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. I
so
would hate to be framed for a crime I did not commit.
yeah. So the yeah, Australia is really good. It's navigating how different markets around the world approach data like this. But really, when you see the data on aggregate, so it's all anonymized data when we see the data on aggregate from all of the precision health tests. And that's really interesting data as well for public health to use, to understand different trends, different chronic health conditions, what they can be doing, what they can be promoting to get communities to live healthier lives. So it's all very, very interesting space to be in.
Before we close off the podcast, it's a tradition that we always ask you two questions. One question will actually come from someone within DBG or IPA, which is Independent Pharmacies of Australia. Today, your question actually comes from someone you work closely with.
I think I know.
So, your question comes today from Lucy. And Lucy is your partnership manager at Precision Health. And she wants to know, if you had the opportunity to give your 24-year-old self advice, what would that be? I looked at her and I said,
Good
Chick,
question.
you're asking her about a question where she has to answer about what advice she'd give herself 2 years ago? Come on, girl.
No, no, 24. It feels like about 25 years ago. I was 24. That's a really good question. I think I would have been kinder to myself. I think I've got some strengths that now I recognize are my superpowers, but then there are some areas that I'm not so good at that I used to beat myself up about. And I would have said, align with people that, um, you know, can help bolster the areas that you're not so good in. And instead of trying to take it all on yourself and try and be the best at everything, you just can't. So the more I understand and play to my strengths, the more
The
success and
better.
breakthrough I get.
Amazing.
Yes. But if you ask me to sit behind an Excel spreadsheet, I don't know. I feel like I'd just burst in flames. I wouldn't, I wouldn't even
You and me
be able to
both.
interpret it.
You and me both. And I think that's the biggest thing as well, that when you're younger, you try and do it all. You try and be it all. But then, and I think Dennis says it all the time that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I just happen
He's
to
pretty smart.
align myself with
Yeah.
with those that are the experts in the different departments.
Yes,
And
he
yeah.
does. Yeah, and really encourages people to play to their strengths, which I think is one of Dennis's superpowers too. Um,
The last question comes from ChatGPT. We
cool.
too are innovative and AI focused. um, so, ChatGPT generated a question for you. We know pharmacists are great at giving advice,
Mm.
but if you had to give a totally unexpected piece of life advice that is unrelated to health or medicine,
Ooh.
what would it be?
To a pharmacist or to myself?
To everyone, it's your
Everyone.
last closing statement to the world right now.
Take time, like you've encouraged me to today, to reflect on the wins and successes, because
Yeah.
we're always guilty of wanting what's next. You know, I've got this personality where I'm wired to always strive for the next thing, which is great. But if you don't take time to actually enjoy the journey as well and enjoy the milestones, then I don't think you'll be as satisfied.
Well, Sally, thank you so much for your time today. It's been actually quite riveting. At Independent Pharmacies Australia, we're dedicated to supporting a network of leading independent and branded pharmacies nationwide with a vision to connect all member pharmacies under the IPA national brand. Recognized by Australians for elevating community healthcare to meet local needs. Thank you for joining us today on the Pharmacy Podcast. We appreciate your support in our mission to shape a thriving and patient-centric pharmacy industry. For more information about Independent Pharmacies Australia, you can visit our website, ipagroup.com, or stay connected with us on social media. Thank you once again for joining us. We look forward to welcoming you back soon as we continue our journey together, enhancing community healthcare